everybody has stuff they're confident at, whether it is public speaking, whether it's video games, whether it's Excel, whether it's cooking. And so if you conceptually can understand that you have gained confidence in a bunch of learned skills in your life, then inside the workplace you can absolutely gain confidence in anything, but it just might not happen overnight.
Welcome to the Culture Goodr podcast, a behind-the-shades look at creating and changing culture inside of goodr sunglasses.
All right. Welcome back to the Culture Goodr podcast. It's great to see you, Stephen.
Oh, good to see you, my friend.
Yeah. All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about developing confidence at work. And one of the things that always comes up, especially during onboarding, is imposter syndrome. It's that thing that keeps us from feeling like we can be present, we can be ourselves, and we belong, right? What do you think? How do you think that plays into confidence at work?
Oh, man. I mean, I'll go, a little hippie from the beginning, which is,
love it.
When you have imposter syndrome, there's just a lot of negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to remember the goal is to give yourself confidence. And so right away from the beginning, if you are looking for confidence and you are talking to yourself negatively, you're a ride. So I think that's just if you were to take nothing away from this episode about if you have imposter syndrome, where to go. And I think it does start for sure within. Mm-hmm. But, I think starting anything creates feelings of imposter syndrome, whether it is starting a new job, it could be starting a new sport. And so how do you overcome that? Well, the long, uneloquent answer is you just prepare and you do it a lot.
Right. Just keep going. Keep going until it feels like you belong.
Yeah, and I think if everybody has stuff they're confident at, whether it is public speaking, whether it's video games, whether it's Excel, whether it's cooking. And so if you conceptually can understand that you have gained confidence in a bunch of learned skills in your life, then inside the workplace you can absolutely gain confidence in anything, but it just might not happen overnight.
Yeah. Well, and the hidden premise there is that I should be better at this thing that I haven't done yet than I am, right?
Yeah. And I would say, I don't know, should you? How much effort have you put in?
Right. Maybe look into that and start there.
Yeah. I mean, I think also if you want to be good at anything in your job, so I'm invested, I want to be a good CEO, I want to be a good leader, a good storyteller, strategy is important. Well, I have to become a student of those things. Mm-hmm. And I think at the base level, there are things that always looking to improve. But the improvement comes in the practice. And that I think people sometimes want a quick fix. And unfortunately, there is not one.
Right. Yeah. I think the cool thing, like the failure and success being two sides of the same coin, the way you can make the coin land on its side every time is just focus on what you can learn out of anything, right? From both success and failure.
Yeah. 100%. Or get really into growth, or get really into, I love learning, love solving problems. All right. So get into the thing that lands the coin on the side.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think one of the things that we help people to focus on, like, especially when they're joining goodr, is remembering that, well, we tell them that asking questions is a trust earning power move, right? Because you might come into a new job feeling like, oh, if I ask questions, then it's going to be obvious that I don't know and then I don't belong. And so the imposter syndrome creeps in. So we just kind of hand them that gift of like, we would prefer it if you would ask questions. That way we can build trust.
Oh, yeah. I mean, something I think you touched on there that's critically important to building confidence is becoming confident with just asking questions. Mm-hmm. Man, if you were just to acquire that skill, and anytime somebody is talking and you don't understand, if you can stop nodding along, that is important. I mean, we obviously do a lot with onboarding. We teach skills. We teach that asking questions is a power move. And also we've all been in meetings or rooms where people are talking and you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. You just
Totally. What just came to mind for me, Stephen, is you're super into golf, right? You're a great golfer. You're always practicing, trying to improve your game. one time you and I were talking about golf, and you were asking me, do you know what slope is, like a rating on a course, right?
Yeah.
And I want to connect. I want to be like, yeah, totally, I can guess at it. And as soon as I started to guess at it, you were like, it's okay. It's such an inside thing to know. Let me just explain it to you. Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, thank God. Like, what a relief. I don't have to know something in order for us to bond over this. I can actually learn something, and that builds a connection.
Yes, 100%. And I think the simple asking a question, we all use language and like colloquialisms or acronyms. And I was in a meeting yesterday where I'm like, what is that? And they're like, oh, got it. And so, man, so that's a little thing. I think also the from a root standpoint of confidence, I'm actually feel for me to understand things. One thing I do is I will say stuff back that is on the edge of I don't understand. Or I'm like, let me say this back to you to make sure that I understand it.
Right.
And, at one point I could do every job at this company. At one point I did every job at this company. We have long passed that. So there are so many more experts here. And I'm like, well, my job actually is no longer to know how to do everything. It's just to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people that should be the goal.
Definitely. That's one of those things where the further down the road of expertise you get, you can forget how important the basic questions are. And sometimes experts take longer to solve a simple problem because they know how complex things are, and that's the space they're living in, and they forget the basic, like, is it plugged in?
Yeah. I mean, I think so, pulling this back to developing confidence at work, if you're just out of college, you're learning a lot of skills. I have definitely taken jobs in my life that were a little bit bigger than maybe my skill set. And I think what's really important to understand in that asking questions, sure, nobody expects you to understand everything. And also there is a hard reality that you might have to do one of two things, but probably both. You're gonna have to do an element of working maybe more than your 40 hours a week. And maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but I for sure have taken jobs where I'm like, oh shit, I like this job and I want to work here. And also I need to put in the time.
Yeah.
And I think when I see people fail is they analysis paralysis, or they freeze, get scared to do the work. And then I think there's also just an element of fake it until you make it. That's also just very, very real.
Sure. Yeah. Just go for it. Well, and most problems worth solving, the answer isn't obvious, and it takes work to solve, right? So that's kind of like the fake it till you make it is just keep working on it until it works, and you'll learn something one way or another, right?
Yeah. I think, if you're at a company and you're onboarding, or anybody on your team that maybe you sense they don't have confidence with, I think your ability to break things down into just like really digestible chunks becomes really, really important. And so, here, I want you to work on this and share it with me on Thursday.
Right.
And all right, cool. Then, and so if you are coaching this, or actually you are actually looking to be coached on it, I do this all the time. Cool. If I'm coaching somebody on it, I want you to do this. We're going to look at it on Monday, and then we're going to look at it constantly. I'm in part of a number of learning circles where I'm in there to kind of like look at something and then ask for something. In the next 2 weeks, I want this to be done. You are forcing the behavior. You are giving people confidence, and in that, I'm understanding that I'm not, depending on the person in the role, the level of expectation is you need to give. If you're a leader, you need to set the appropriate expectation and set the appropriate milestones, and then make them a little bigger and bigger. And on the flip side, if you are the one who are looking to learn, looking to develop skills, I would ask for I would ask people for accountability. Okay, I'm going to put together an outline and walk you through next week for some feedback. And then you've just taken control of actually like building your self-confidence. And so those would be kind of the two ways I would look at it, is how can you just get regular, small little chunks, small little milestones, and then share them regularly, and not think you're going to run 26 miles at once. You're going to start with a mile, then 2 miles, and 6 months down the road, you'll get to the marathon.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the incremental progress thing is real. Something you said at the beginning there, where like the learning is a factor, like you're gonna work more than 40 hours, right? You're probably gonna put in a little more work, especially if you're not quite confident, right?
Yeah.
You flashed me back to my first job was as a computer programmer back when Flash was a thing.
Yeah.
Every single day I would go into work with this fear, like I'm not going to be able to solve some programming problem today. I won't know enough. Like the imposter syndrome was there. But what I found that did for me, actually, if we can shine a positive light on that, is every night I was reading these thick, boring programming manuals to like put me to sleep, basically.
Yeah.
That repetition that came from the fear of like, oh, I might not know the answer, I might not know the way, was like that developed a desire to be able to find a way. And then that slowly filled in that gap with like, well, the answer's out there. I can find it. I can go learn stuff instead of like having to know it all immediately.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think what just showed up for me is a lot of times we're hard on ourselves and we actually think we should know more than we should.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably maybe at the core of when you are looking to build confidence at work.
Yeah, definitely. The other side of that is feeling like mistakes are not allowed, even though they're inevitable, right?
Yeah. All right. So Shaun, you lead our learning development team. Do we have like a confidence workshop here at goodr?
A confidence workshop.
Yeah.
Well,
what would that look like if we did?
That is a great question, Stephen. I think we have it in aggregate, but we don't have it on the nose.
Oh, that's yeah. Because we have 101, 201, 301 of copywriting, and
sure.
People can build that storytelling. How to make a deck. So we have them. We don't have it the holistic confidence but yeah, we do have it in a lot of separate domains.
Yeah, but what's consistent about them all is they're focused on building a particular skill from a lower level to a higher level and acknowledging that growth path exists, right? And it's one that can be walked down. So while we're not saying let's develop confidence as the end goal, that is a natural byproduct for the thing that we're working on, right? If we're working on, like you say, storytelling, public speaking, we're going to have to tell stories and speak in public. And the more we do that, the better we get at it. And then our confidence grows.
Yeah. I mean, recently I'm serving as our interim CFO right now, and I've read Finance for Dummies. I've read 2 other novice finance books. I think they're at home. And that stems from I'm not a financial expert. I don't have that skill set. And so I need to do it. And I just started blocking off an hour 3 times a week in the morning so that I do it, because I was avoiding it for so long.
Yeah. So was any part of your identity threatened by not knowing all of these things that you didn't study before you needed them?
There's for sure at times being like, well, I mean, I don't know, Steve, you're the CEO, you should know this. And then there's I don't know, should I? I mean, we're supposed to, we have an entire role for this. I mean,
right.
I know everything. Well, now I know it's quite a bit more than I ever did before.
Right.
But I knew the important things, and for me, it was important to understand, like, I'm not trying to become a CFO. I'm just trying to level up my baseline. But yeah, to answer your question, for sure, there's an element of like, oh, I mean, maybe you should know more of this. I'm like, I don't know, should you? Like, this is pretty advanced concepts.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
So how did just looking within your own confidence there, right? How did you feel your confidence shift in that process of going through not knowing, but kind of trying to learn as much as you could?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that nobody here expects me to be an expert in finance. And I'll be honest, I owned it, like, as I'm leading the Money Herd, very transparent, like, hey, I am not an expert in finance, and so I cannot provide that coaching. I can coach you on leadership, I can coach you on process, transparency, accountability. We're going to take things down to the simplest form. And so I think just actually acknowledging where my skill level is, just allowed me to not have to pretend.
For sure. And that feels great.
Yeah.
You can be authentic.
There's still, and I gave the team permission on my, hey, when I say things that are inappropriate, or when I pronounce a financial term, or I use the word budget and I mean expense, I need you to correct me. Because I'm not doing that. I'm not doing this, but just correct me. It's not. You need to. I'm giving you permission to correct the CEO, please.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's great. So you're saying, I'm going to make mistakes. I want you to point them out so that I can improve.
Yeah. And this all goes back to you, right? You do have a lot of power in this. But just cultivate a little bit of courage and self-awareness and ownership, and acknowledge where your skill set is.
Yeah. And the frame of mind that you are expressing here is useful in any case, right? If you state outwardly the limits of your knowledge, request correction, and to be taught something that you don't know, if ever that happens, like, you're just putting yourself in a position to learn and not feel like, oh shit, I should have known that or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, also, this is probably the biggest secret for everybody is you just Google it. You just
there is also the internet.
YouTube. There are a lot of things out there.
Yeah. That probably would have helped me in my my design career, hearing the word FPO in every meeting and going, I should know what that is, but I'm not going to look it up. Eventually just look that shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that we do at goodr to create a space where we can feel like we're learning from our mistakes, or at the very least, when we blow it, we can be like, all right, that one's going on the board, is we created what we call the flock up belt, right? So at the end of the year, we've got our big black tie event. Maybe you can give us a little bit of like, what kind of intro would you give to the flock up belt award, and what's the spirit of it, and why we celebrate it?
Yeah, right. If you want to make everybody be okay with failure, because failure is not optional if you want success to be the goal, then you just make an award so that you can celebrate it.
Yeah.
And so that's really fun. We do it by team, so I think it helps. It's not individual. And yeah, I think at its core, it's we celebrate big swings and big failures. So that's actually at the complete core of it, making it super fun. We also have a channel here with like the flock up channel on Slack, and so anybody is encouraged when they like, oh, fuck this up today. So how do we just normalize making mistakes? I think is just a big part of the work culture we want to create. Is normalizing making mistakes is very important.
Absolutely. And then leading by example. You had a little one, right? But before you were on vacation, you just popped in the thread and you're like, yep, fuck that up.
Oh, yeah. Yep. It's just, but yeah, we all do it all the time. I do my trimesterly review AMP in front of the company and try to always acknowledge when I make mistakes. So I try and lead by example. I think if you're a leader, you should always try and lead by example. And then I think the other thing I'll say here is I love when people start a meeting or enter my office and be like, hey, I fucked something up. I'm like, oh, let's go. That right there, we immediately, there's a self-awareness there. And that conversation, no matter how big the fuck up is, it's just going to go so much easier because they started that way.
For sure. Well, the frame is on, so it's okay to be like, all right, let's explore what went wrong, instead of like, do I need to convince you that you did something wrong here? Right? It's a different conversation.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of confidence is we all have strengths. If you use a strength too much, it becomes a weakness. And I think that's a really important thing. So be mindful as you are developing skills and you are learning how to do things. How do you not always fall back? And I can, if I love process. I'm a process to my core, and process is really important. In fact, this company's kind of built on process. But if all you do is process, you are not creating space for creative problem solving and agility. And then if all you are doing is agility shooting from the hip, you are fucking yourself long term from a process standpoint, right? So I think just understanding when you gain confidence in an area, how do you build upon that and not just be a slave to that one skill?
Right, for sure. Well, is there a way to flip it around and like, how do you lean into a weakness, like own something that isn't strong and then use that as a way to develop confidence or not overplay your strengths?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think once you are in the workplace, once you have gained some like expertise and confidence in anything, insert what it is, at that moment, it's actually really easy to start pivoting from people around you. Like, oh, opportunity for me is this. Well, actually, I'd reframe it as an opportunity, and and that's number one.
Already did it. Nice.
Yeah, that's probably from Matt, our leadership coach, but reframe it as an opportunity, and at that moment, I think it gets a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think?
I agree. If there's something like, let's say it's just, if my weakness is listening, the way I feel confident is if I'm speaking, I'm taking up space, right? Then my weakness becomes an opportunity if I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to listen in this meeting and see what I learn, right? Or if not speaking up is my challenge, speaking up is difficult for me, I'm going to feel that like, ooh, I know what I need to say, but I'm just not going to say it. And then that moment, I'm like, all right, here's my chance to do the thing I don't normally do, right? I'm going to speak. I'm just going to see what happens. Those are the things that give us a chance to test that internal sense of not enough, or it's not going to work, or it's not worth it, or whatever, right? And then ultimately what we find on the other side of that resistance is that we grow stronger because we pushed against it, just like any kind of weight training or whatever.
Yeah. All right, so if somebody comes to you, Shaun, inside this company and is like, hey, I'm struggling to gain confidence, how do you coach them through it? That's
a great question. I usually start with more questions like, where is this coming up? What kind of situations do you find yourself feeling that you lack confidence? And then sort of like pull that thread and see what comes out from there.
Yeah. And if you're just to give, advice to somebody on the podcast listening, struggling with confidence in the workplace, how do you kind of wrap up what we've been talking about? What's kind of like some tactical things you would point them down path on?
So first thing is make sure that you're not getting in your own way by taking yourself down, right? Give yourself a shot in the first place. Know that you can learn anything. There's a source of information, whether it's the internet or a colleague or someone who can give you the answers. You don't need to be, I think it would be Brene Brown who says you don't need to be a know-it-all. You can be a learn-it-all. Change the frame to a growth mindset. Then give yourself a chance to say out loud what the limits of your experience are, what the limits of your skills are, and just acknowledge, I don't know this, I'm working to develop it. If you hear me say something wrong, just correct me, it's fine. That puts you in the frame of mind of like, all right, I'm just ready to learn stuff and I want to do my best. I'm going to ask questions about things I don't know about. And then try stuff. Take a shot, take a swing. You'll never know if you can hit it unless you swing in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I would say yes, and just set yourself some mini milestones over a long period of time to hit and share. That's going to do wonders.
Yeah, absolutely. And if every milestone, the arrival at that thing is some kind of lesson, you learn something, that is how you know you're making incremental progress.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we're good, right, friend?
Right on. Absolutely. I'm good if you are. Anything else that's coming to mind for you? No, I would say that it's not having, this is a normal thing. All skills are learned, and you can also learn them. That's my motivation to send you out in the world. I love it. We'll leave on that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, be excellent to each other.